Woosa, wake up South Africa. You've been sleeping far too long. Wake up South Africa.
Hey, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for joining us today on this Sunday morning inspiration with remembering Srila Prabhupada, such an important topic today. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, over to you.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. First, I'd like to also thank Savyasatchi Prabhu and devotees for allowing me to share a little about remembering Srila Prabhupada. I'm going to share a slideshow, right? You should be able to see the slideshow.
Yes, Prabhu, we can see.
All right, wonderful. All right, so it's a wonderful topic, and we're going to, and I thought I'll share a slideshow because that way also we remember Srila Prabhupada just by seeing him. And as I go through, then I will be asking one or two questions. You can type in the chat as well. And then after the end, we can take any questions. So let us first start with Jai Radha Madhava.
Jai Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Musrata Mansa Paribhajagacharya Sakhavi Smala Vitam Saraswati Swami Prabhupada Jaya Nanda Gauri Vaishnava Ki Jaya Ramachandra Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jaya Name to the whole Sri Krishna Radha Krishna Ko Gopna Sam Kund Radha Kund Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadip Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Madhu Dwarka Dham ki jai, Swami Bhaktivedanta ki jai. All glories to the all glories to the Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go over the Mangal Charan prayers. Om Jnanatmi Vandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasme Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Thapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Prem Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pastata Desatavine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's a wonderful topic. When Savyasachi Prabhu sent me 3 topics, there was no doubt that this topic was the only one I could select because for me, Srila Prabhupada means a lot. And he means a lot because it is of him that I'm here. It is because of him that I am even speaking to you. I know my life before coming to Krishna consciousness. And I've spoken at temples, given lectures, given causes. But when you understand where I came from, you'll appreciate more why Srila Prabhupada means so much to me. And I generally share this with devotees to also encourage them that when we connect with Srila Prabhupada, wonderful things happen. It is described in the Ramayana when Hanuman and all the monkeys were there, they were encouraging, or in fact, they were asking each, when they were trying to figure out how to go to Lanka. Then the monkeys were discussing with each other and said, okay, who can jump the furthest? And each one started, well, I can jump, 5 meters, I can jump 20 meters, I can jump 200, etc. They were going and sharing how far they can jump. But Hanuman never spoke. And when Jambavan asked Hanuman, why are you not telling us how far you can jump? He said, because that's the wrong question. We should not be asking how far or how much I can do, but really how much can the Lord and how much can Srila Prabhupada do through us? And it's a beautiful example that was shared that if you compare bow and arrow, or if you take a bow and arrow, then it is described that the arrow is you and the bow and the bowman is the Lord, or Srila Prabhupada. So it's not how far the arrow can travel on its own strength, but it's how much the bowman can stretch that bow and shoot that arrow. So the distance of that arrow traveling is dependent not on the bow, not on the arrow, but on the bow and the bowman. And therefore, Hanuman made it very clear that by the mercy of Lord Ram, we can do anything. Even me as a monkey can cross Lanka simply by the power of the Lord's holy name. So I never liked reading. I hated reading. I had then D in English, E in Afrikaans. I never practically spoke to people. So this was, I was practically very introspective. And then when I came to Krishna consciousness, it was like a 360-degree turn. You had to speak to people. Practically, my English improved just by reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And so many transformations were there because of bringing Srila Prabhupada in my life. I also like to share this example of why to remember Srila Prabhupada. And before I get into that, I like each one of you to type in the chat, why do you think it's important to remember Srila Prabhupada? Just one statement, a few words, just let us know, why do you think it is important for you personally to remember Srila Prabhupada? Please share in the chat. So I'm not sure if we're streaming on Facebook, maybe we can just audibly share those comments that are coming through on Facebook as well. So Service Sachi Prabhu says he's always sharing Krishna. Ajay Chen Prabhu says he saved us all. Madhura Kanumini Maraji says he connected us to spiritual knowledge otherwise unknown to us before. Madhachani Siddhi says to remember Krishna. Keshav Krishna Prabhu says he sacrificed to save us. Wonderful. Savasaj Prabhu said he is the guide in the darkness of Kali. Bafana Prabhu says his place to hide against the furnace of material. His place, his shelter is hide against the furnace of material anxiety. PPW says he brought Krishna consciousness to the Western world unreservedly. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, and he has made spiritual knowledge understandable. Thank you for your comments. Yes. Now, I'll share another reason, and I'll go through some others. One reason is remembering and sharing about Srila Prabhupada pleases the devotees, because we are connected to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada touched every single one of us in different ways and through different ways. And therefore, when we share Srila Prabhupada, it goes deep, it goes to the core of the heart. And I'll share, when I was studying and I was teaching in Vrindavan. So after studying, then I was teaching in Vrindavan at the VIHE. So I was one of the teachers. Now I was one of the teachers amidst, all the stalwart, the Maharatis there, Burijan Prabhu, Mother Narayani, all of them, they were also teaching. And I was given the service to teach nectar devotion. So I humbly accepted for my own purification, because as a student, if I repeat, then that's purifying for me. So I presented, shared nectar devotion, and throughout the course of sharing nectar devotion, I would always share pastimes of Srila Prabhupada relevant to that specific topic and relevant to that specific subject. And then after all the teachers had presented, their causes, and then there was evaluation, they were also evaluated teachers. And it was interesting that they shared with me, shared with a student, guess who the students rated as the best teacher? And they rated me, not because I was best in any standard compared to all the stalwart devotees and the disciples Srila Prabhupada were teaching, but what made the devotees select me as the best was not me. It was because of Srila Prabhupada being there with them in form of memories, in form of instructions. So therefore, whenever I speak, I'll always make it a point of sharing Srila Prabhupada, bringing Srila Prabhupada there, because it is Srila Prabhupada that unites us, and it is Srila Prabhupada that inspires us. He's the center. So here are a few reasons why we should remember Srila Prabhupada. It's described in scripture, when we remember any person, whether that be a materialistic or spiritual person, you attract their qualities, you develop their qualities. And this is why it's very important that we only try to remember and speak about glorious personalities. One time we were driving with His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Maharaj to a program, and while driving, he asked about the president of the country, and we started sharing about the president of the country. At that time, Zuma was the president, and unfortunately, we started telling him about the negative side, and immediately he said, "Well, that's very dangerous. Not about the president, about you, because you'll be attracting those qualities." So therefore, he instructed us, do not speak about him in that way. So he taught us to change direction. If we speak about anyone, speak about the good qualities of that person, because you will attract those qualities of the person you are remembering. By remembering Srila Prabhupada, we remember his amazing qualities, and we start to develop those qualities within us just by remembering him. We can develop it by Krishna Eka Sharana, by surrendering to Krishna, by process Krishna come, but just by remembering Srila Prabhupada, we develop his wonderful qualities. We should remember his instructions, which are very important for us. If we do not read or do not understand his instructions, we will not know how to guide our lives. So remembering his instructions is very important, especially for personal practice, as well as understanding how he wanted us to present ourselves and lead ourselves. For example, we find in terms of his instructions, we find Vishnujan Swami one time was chanting Kirtan, and he heard in India that the mantra is chanted Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama. So he thought, oh, that's cool. So he started chanting the mantra like that, and it so happened that Srila Prabhupada was there, hearing and listening. As soon as Prabhupada heard that, Prabhupada stopped him and said, what is Rama? You should not be chanting Rama. It should be Rama. If you chant Rama, you will destroy the whole movement. So that's instructive. And if we don't know Prabhupada's instructions, we may hear what's out there, we may see what's out there, and we may think it's okay. And then we bring it in our own practice, only to find that it's ineffective, or as Prabhupada said, you will create a disturbance. So we should be aligned and understand, we should align and understand Srila Prabhupada's instructions very, very clearly, so that we keep the legacy that he has given, so that others can benefit. Then remembering his example. We all need role models in our lives, and Srila Prabhupada is a perfect role model that we should follow. He's the Acharya. He came to teach us by his own example, and therefore, even though he's a pure devotee, but we'll share, he's a pure devotee with a difference in the sense that we can relate to Srila Prabhupada greatly. Remembering his mood, knowing his instructions, knowing his example, that's great. But if we do not understand his mood, which is what every personality brings to their mission, to their society, you can start another society that's replicated with everything we have in the Hare Krishna movement. But there's one thing you cannot add in there, and that is Prabhupada's mood. So I can start as another society, and I can have everything that replicates ISKCON, but if I don't have Srila Prabhupada there, his mood is not there. So understanding how Prabhupada wanted us to carry out his mission, in what mood That is very, very important. And then remembering Srila Prabhupada is also important in terms of understanding his mission. By remembering Prabhupada, it reminds us of his mission. Remembering Krishna, naturally Prabhupada, he was totally Krishna conscious. So we remember Krishna. And we always remember what he did for us, for our personal transformation. What did he give us? What did he sacrifice for us, for every single one of us? It is very, very important that when we bring Srila Prabhupada in our life, when we remember Srila Prabhupada, we are not a personality cult. We don't want to just bring a person in our life and remember everything about that person without bringing in the center his mission. A personality cult means remembering everything about the person and not his mission. So we want to bring Prabhupada and keep Prabhupada in our center, and especially his mission. Prabhupada, in one of his Bhaktivedanta purports in the Srimad Bhagavatam, says, I think it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada says that the mission is more important to the disciple than the guru himself. And Prabhupada says that if the guru leaves and the disciple does not continue the mission, then the disciple might as well leave with the guru. This is, very profound. The mission is actually more important. So we're not a person that, oh, I love Prabhupada, we can have badges, we can have slogans, we can glorify Prabhupada, that's great. Prabhupada said, I'm not interested in your glory, I'm interested in your service. And that is connected to the mission that he came to give. There are many ways we can remember Srila Prabhupada, naturally through following the 7 purposes that he gave us, reading and studying his books, so many wonderful memories by his followers, his disciples, his grand disciples. It's just unlimited nectar. His audios. It's amazing that Srila Prabhupada is one of the, you could say, one of the only acharyas in our line where we have so much of him given to us. There's like a minute clip of Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj, and that's not even with an audio. That's it. We don't have, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is absolutely no audios, no clips. We have some photograph, but if you look at Srila Prabhupada, over 1,000 audios, lectures, so many photographs, even though Prabhupada never liked taking, devotees taking photographs, but so many photographs, so many books. That's not by chance. It is by design. Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America and he received some donations, the first thing he did was he bought a recorder, small portable recorder. And he would come in 26 Second Avenue, he would come for class and there would be nobody there. So he take the tape recorder and he press play, a record. And he speaks to the recorder. The next day, there are some devotees there. Prabhupada presses play. And he plays his own lecture to the audience. So Prabhupada started recording. When he needed a new dictaphone, because they had to type. So Garga Muni Prabhu went and he found this German, it was a new invention, new dictaphone machine, very sophisticated. So he brought this machine to Srila Prabhupada. He put his machine there. Srila Prabhupada, this is a dictaphone. And he started explaining to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said, I know, you can leave. How did he know? This is like a new invention. So this is not the first time. This scribe Prabhupada is doing this service in every universe, in the creation of Krishna. So it's not the first time, but we have so much to remember Srila Prabhupada. I said Srila Prabhupada is relatable. And I'll share a few pastimes of how Srila Prabhupada is so relatable to us, even though He is the pure devotee of the Lord. It's not like, Krishna allowed him to do things without going through what we go through in life. So Srila Prabhupada once recalled with great clarity an accident that occurred when he was very young, and he was traveling in a bullock cart. So that was the mode of transport. Nowadays we have cars. After all those decades, he still distinctly remembered flying through the air when the wheels hit a stone and collapsed. Baby Abhay was the only one unhurt, landing on the soft grass. So we may also go through accidents. And if we are Krishna conscious and Krishna has a plan, Krishna can save us in different ways, just as he saved Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada, he was such an amazing personality that when he saw any devotees, many devotees shared that when they see Srila, when Prabhupada saw them directly, it's like Prabhupada was scanning them. And they felt Prabhupada could see all their bad qualities. And Hari Sauri Prabhu says, no, Prabhupada wasn't seeing your bad qualities. In fact, Srila Prabhupada was scanning you and seeing how I can engage this soul in Krishna's service. He was able to see even the slightest sincerity or skill and amplify that, magnify that tremendously. Prabhupada had this amazing ability. There's an example of Crazy Peter in Boston. This Crazy Peter was there, he joined the temple, and all he did was sleep in the pathway. Imagine you go to the temple and you find somebody sleeping right at the doorway. Prabhupada said the temple is not a place of crazy and lazies, right? But here we find somebody right in the doorway sleeping. And the temple president at the time, tried to do, correct him, but he was already there. So they wrote to Srila Prabhupada and they said, Prabhupada, this Crazy Peter, he's lying there, and this creating a disturbance. We want to do something, chase him away. This is not acceptable. Prabhupada wrote back, and he wrote one line. He said, what's the matter? Can't you tolerate? And when so much got that letter, it's like, what's the matter? You can't, it's like, gee, what are we going to tell a congregation? What's the matter? You can't tolerate. This is not on. And they had to follow in Prabhupada's instruction. So they had to leave him. Okay, we have to tolerate him. Why? Because Prabhupada could see what no one else could see. Crazy Peter, after a few months, left Boston Temple. And it so happened that Giriraj Maharaj happened to, go to Los Angeles Temple after a few years. And one day in the temple, Maharaj noticed, I know him. It is Crazy Peter. And he was initiated, Kushakrata Prabhu. And Kushakrata Prabhu became a Sanskrit scholar. He translated the Goswami books. So just see, from Crazy Peter to Kushakrata, Prabhupada could see. Prabhupada had so many instructions given to us through his own example. One time Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and his servant was massaging him, and because of the mosquitoes, the servant was under a mosquito net with Srila Prabhupada. So there's a mosquito net and they're both under the mosquito net, and the servant is massaging Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And it so happened that the mosquito managed to get even under the net. So this servant immediately tried to squat the mosquito. And Prabhupada said, no, don't do that. So immediately stopped. And then Prabhupada, after a few minutes, the mosquito came and landed on Srila Prabhupada and started biting him. And then Prabhupada, moved the mosquito away, and Prabhupada said, now you can. So Prabhupada said, now you can squat him. Why? Because now he's an aggressor. But it's explained Bhagavad Gita that you can kill 6 aggressors. One that attacks with a weapon. So the mosquito attacked him. Because he attacked, now he's an aggressor. Okay, so now Prabhupada said, now you can kill him. So that was very instructive. Srila Prabhupada clearly remember that when he was 4, the year that the plague hit Kolkata. His father would invite Sankirtan chanters from the street into his house, although reaching only up to their knees. Little Abhay would join the chanters in singing and dancing. Shortly after this, the plague subsided. So we also experiencing a similar situation. And the only remedy, the only cure, not only for what we're going through, but for every scenario. Prabhupada said there may be a third world war. And they asked Srila Prabhupada, well, if there's a third world war, what are we going to do? Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada did say that if we had our farm projects, this was Prabhupada in 1977, before Prabhupada left, Prabhupada sent a letter to every temple president and said, now I want you all to set up a farm. Why? Because Prabhupada could see the future. He could understand what's coming. And Prabhupada said, if we have our farm projects, when there's a war, thousands will flock to the farm. You won't even need to invite people to come to the Hare Krishna temple. There will be thousands that will come. So Prabhupada took shelter of chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada was extremely compassionate. When we understand, when we remember Prabhupada and his compassion, it really touches our heart. But at the same time, Prabhupada's compassion was transformational. It transformed devotees' hearts. Another example is Pigpen. In France, Pigpen, he was practically like a tramp, like a bum in the street, unkept, never washed, couldn't speak English. And he would come knocking on the temple door for food. So he would knock on the door and send food. And one time Indra Maharaj was there and he was giving Pigpen. They call him Pigpen because he was so dirty. And they would give, feed him prasadam. Prabhupada happened to come to France and Prabhupada was going on a morning walk, going past where Pigpen would stay in the bushes. So all the, Prabhupada's disciples were there. Prabhupada was in the center. And it so happened that as they were going past where Pigpen was staying, he jumped out of the bush. Somehow he recognized Srila Prabhupada. And he jumped out of the bush to touch his feet. When Prabhupada was walking one time in America in the park, they have a walkthrough where there's both sides it's fence and there's wild animals on both sides, just like a fancy park. And while Prabhupada was walking through the fancy park, even the animals would join Srila Prabhupada on the walk to get his mercy, to get his darshan. So even they recognize this person is special. So Pigpen recognized this somehow. So he went to go touch Srila Prabhupada's feet and immediately the disciples caught him, threw him in the bush. Oh, you can't do that, sorry. They threw him in the bush. Prabhupada didn't say anything, Prabhupada carried on walking. But it seems Pigpen was serious. So what he did was, while the devotees were walking with Prabhupada, Pigpen entered the temple and sat in the center of the temple room. Prabhupada came back to the temple, and it so happened that all the disciples were at the back. Prabhupada was in front, and Prabhupada was the first to enter the temple room. So Prabhupada entered the temple room, and right there in front of him, in the center, he saw Pigpen. So immediately, Pigpen went to go touch Prabhupada's feet, and the disciples noticing that from the back, oh, there's he. They tried to come in front to stop Prabhupada. Prabhupada already touched his lotus hand on his head and said, "It's okay, my son, it's okay." And when the disciples came, they obviously froze because Prabhupada already had given him mercy. Now they say, okay, now Prabhupada's given him the mercy, we can't do anything. So Pigpen was there in the center. Prabhupada gave the talk. Everybody went. Prabhupada went to his room. Now the disciples, the temple management are wondering, now what we have to do? He's sitting there, he's standing, he's still there. We can't throw him away. He got Prabhupada's mercy. So they said, okay, take him to the shower, shave him up, put him on a dhoti. So they shaved him up, put him in the dhoti, and their Pigpen came shaven, ready for action. And they said, okay, what are we going to let him do? He says, well, he can't speak, he can't do anything. Maybe we'll let him wash pots. So he started washing pots. And Pigpen started washing pots. Over a few months, he started learning English. One day, the devotees were ready to go into March, and all the devotees were ready to go on Sankirtan. Every morning they would go on Sankirtan, put the breakfast, everything in the van, put the books, and go on Sankirtan. Pigpen took a book bag, jumped in the van, and was ready for Sankirtan. And Indra Maharaj said, no, where are you going? It's like, no, you're not ready. He said, no. Going. Okay, so they had to take him. They said, okay, we'll get him. As soon as we get there, we'll get him to wash the van. So they came to this spot where they're going to distribute. And they, as soon as the devotees got off to take breakfast, Big Pen was the first to go with his book bag and sell the books. He was at a distance, and the devotees were looking at him, and the books were going out. And they're wondering, wow, this is far out. What is he telling them? While the devotees are having breakfast, he's distributing books. He comes back with an empty bag. They were shocked. They were saying, what did you tell them? Right? He said, Prabhupada saved me. Prabhupada saved me. Prabhupada saved me. That's all he could say. That's all he told them. And the books went out. And from that day, he became one of the big book distributors, Rasaswada Prabhu. So this was Prabhupada's compassion and transformation ability. During the communal riots in Calcutta, like we have the riots in Durban, so these things happen. This is Kali Yuga. During the communal riots in Calcutta, when Abai was about 13, he had to cross a riot-torn area in the neighborhood to get home. A Mohammedan wielded a knife, almost attacking the boy to kill him, but he managed to run fast enough to get away and reach home. So we can see, even though Prabhupada was a pure devotee, Prabhupada went through, was going through all the things we go through. And this is what makes Prabhupada very, very relatable and very unique as an acharya. Now he's an acharya, yet Srila Prabhupada had to stand in the queue. Just consider the world acharya, that even the demigods are offering petals to this personality. This is Krishna's chief commander, Senapati Bhakta, and yet he had to stand in queue for his visa. He had to stand behind devotees to be in line to take a shower. He was stranded alone in America, not knowing to turn left or right. In fact, when he landed in America at first place, he had to travel. Srila Prabhupada stayed in accommodation, and he had to travel 9 blocks just to take a shower. This was Srila Prabhupada. And why did Prabhupada go through all this? To give us Krishna consciousness. I like to share a wonderful pastime about the key. It's a long story, I'll try to cut it short. Srila Prabhupada one time was giving a talk, and devotees sitting was on a stage, and Prabhupada was talking about, at the time of death, one needs to be Krishna conscious 100%, 100%. Otherwise you can't go back home. And the devotees looking despondent. To think of Krishna only at the time of death is very difficult. So Prabhupada said, okay, 95% Krishna conscious. If you're 95% Krishna conscious, Krishna will take you back to Godhead. So there was some relief, but still that's a high mark to achieve. Then Prabhupada finished the talk. He got off the Vyasasan, looked at them and said, okay, 85%. If you're 85% Krishna conscious, Krishna will take you back to Godhead. The devotees were now smiling. We got some possibility. Then Prabhupada, very regal, Prabhupada takes his chadar through the chadar above, over him, looks, his face is looking in the sky. You can see this is a person from the spiritual world, like an ambassador. He walks out. As soon as he walks, he said, okay, 75% Krishna conscious. If you're 75% Krishna conscious, Krishna will take you back to Godhead. They were they were happy, they were ecstatic. And now we got definitely, there's hope for us. So Prabhupada goes back to his room and devotees start to discuss, but hold on. Prabhupada is saying 75%. Krishna is saying 100%. What gives Prabhupada the right to say 75% we get back to Godhead? Right? So like sometimes when devotees leave, right? We have a like a natural thing. Oh, no, you went back to Godhead. What gives you the right to say he's gone back to Godhead? He could have gone anywhere, wherever Krishna wants him. So what gives Prabhupada the right to say he's gone, that you can go back to Godhead? So they were discussing, different options. In the evening, the servant went to Srila Prabhupada and asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, this is the situation. And Prabhupada said that my spiritual master is no ordinary. He got the back door key. So from the front door, 100%. From the back door, you can, they have the key. You can get 75%. So it's not what you know, it's who you know. We have somebody that's got the back door key. And Srila Prabhupada has that. Srila Prabhupada is no doubt a very, very, very special person. And he's not just a great person of this material world. but a very special person from the spiritual world. And in conclusion, I'd like to share this. Srila Prabhupada had told Gopal Ghosh about the anecdote when he got the idea for ISKCON. It is where Srila Prabhupada did his own bhajan, and many times Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Jiva Goswami appeared to him in his dreams. Once, when he was staying at Radha Damodar Temple, before coming to America in 1965, while honoring Prasad, Srila Prabhupada was looking out of the window when suddenly Rupa Goswami appeared before him and spoke encouraging words. So here is Srila Prabhupada personally meeting Rupa Goswami, these great acharyas. And Rupa Goswami told him, Maj, don't worry about anything. Go ahead and travel to the West and preach. Just preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Hare Krishna, chant and chanting of the Hare Krishna. You will be successful. I guarantee you, because I will be right there with you all the time. So we are connected to such a magnificent, extraordinary personality. It is our good fortune to always remember the pastimes, the instructions, the personality of Srila Prabhupada, service mission, and we will be the most blessed and fortunate souls on the planet. And by us sending, distributing, and sharing this good fortune that we have with others, we will make others fortunate.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Bye. Thank you so much, Prabhu. That was, wow, that was really wonderful. And it's always so nice to hear about Srila Prabhupada. So thank you for sharing all those wonderful pastimes. So yes, so if anyone has questions, you can, raise your hand or type them in the discussion box.
Or you can even unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmute yourself with we'll have to unmute the people because little setting. On Facebook, and also on Facebook or YouTube, you can also.
Savya Sachi Prabhu's got his hand.
Hare Krishna, Nrsimhananda Prabhu. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna dear devotees. I'm just actually experiencing the result of what you mentioned in the beginning, that when we remember Srila Prabhupada, we become very enthused. And you spoke about if one, or one should, most importantly, keep the mission of the Guru in the forefront, that glorifying the Guru without taking up his mission is subpar.
Yes.
Prabhu, what could you say to us? There's a lot of young people here on this call, and how do we see each other as allies in the mission of Srila Prabhupada, instead of seeing our own lives as the mission and maybe just our own spiritual teachers as central?
Yes, and that's true. We all have teachers and mentors, gurus, Diksha gurus, Shiksha gurus. In one seminar that I presented called the founder-acharya as well, in there I give the example that Srila Prabhupada is like the big umbrella, and everybody else that we take shelter of are like small umbrellas. But even the small umbrella that we may have is also under the big shelter of Srila Prabhupada's big umbrella. And every single one of us, including our Diksha gurus of Shiksha Gurus. We have no standing on our own feet without Srila Prabhupada. So it is Srila Prabhupada that is really there as the foundation of every single devotee's lives. And therefore, every one of us, every member of the society should really be a transparent medium in terms of sharing Prabhupada's mission and allowing that to come through and making sure that we also send everything back to him. If we block that, if we become that block where now I'm, the guru and I don't take, or I don't allow Prabhupada to come through very clearly, then it becomes an obstacle. And Srila Prabhupada shared many, very often that when we do that, then we naturally will stop the mission. Now we may stop the mission temporarily. There is no way we can stop the mission permanently because the mission is more powerful than us. So I may create a disturbance. I may stop, the flow of the mission. It's like having a fountain, and you are now trying to block that fountain, that wave that's coming through just by your strength. You'll be washed away. So like that, we may become obstacles, but we don't want to become obstacles. And therefore, when we see that, and when we all do that, we find that each one of us will have a different style, a different method, a different personality in the mission and to approach and attract people. Bhakti Tiramaj, yes, I was hearing Bhakti Tiramaj shared one very interesting instruction. He said that there was one of his god brothers, and he always disagreed with this god brother. They could never get along in terms of the ideas. They always disagreed, but he appreciated and respected him tremendously because he said, we need different types of generals to win the war or win the battle against Maya. So each one of us are unique. Each one of us have different skills and abilities that we can bring to Srila Prabhupada's mission in his service. And really, it's our good fortune. Whatever we can do, whatever little we can do, whatever big thing we can do in his mission, that's glorious and that's wonderful. So we should not see ourselves really as competitors. And at the same time, every one of us should try our best to always present Srila Prabhupada first and foremost in terms of his instructions, in terms of his mission. And we will automatically be glorified because of that service. It's interesting, the more you want glory, you'll find that the more it will evade you. The more you don't want glory and put Prabhupada in the forefront, the more you'll get glory. Like Srila Prabhupada himself. When Prabhupada went across the globe, what did he do? He never put himself first. He could have called it, right? The International Society for Prabhupada Consciousness, Ki Jai. But he never did that. No, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He put Krishna always in the front, always in the forefront. And because of that, Prabhupada's glory is magnified because Krishna will make sure he'll glorify Prabhupada. So I hope I answered that. If I understood your question.
Thank you, Prabhu, for that wonderful answer. So there's just some comments and questions in the chat box. So first, AJ Chaitanya Das asks, do you have the 1977 letter Srila Prabhupada sent to the temple presidents?
Ajay Chaitanya, I'll try to source that letter and get it to you. It should be in a letter. Yeah, it should be in a letter book.
And then from Facebook, Narottam Prabhu said, Hare Krishna Nrsimhananda Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for increasing our remembrance of Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Ki Jai.
And then Archana Siddhi Devidasi said, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for this wonderful session of remembering Srila Prabhupada, so inspiring. And then here's a question from Bungasipu Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu, as a person who has played pivotal roles in the founding of a few temples, what do you think is needed in order to propagate the establishment and maintenance of farm communities?
Yes. We have a lot to do in South Africa. And no doubt across the globe, but in South Africa, we have a lot to do. There's a lot to do, which is great. That means there's ample opportunities. And it's not just a few people can set up or do something. It really requires proper organization intelligence. So right from the top, it requires proper management, proper leadership, not just financial leadership, not just managerial leadership, but also spiritual leadership. That so that we have a clear vision in terms of what we need going forward. And then there need to be that empowerment and support system to set up devotees for success in every field, and especially for the farm projects. It could come from the top, and it can also come from the bottom. There are many farm projects across the globe that started off with few devotees coming together with a commitment and dedication that we're going to go through this. It's going to be difficult, it's going to be hard, but we're going to make it happen, come what may. And they put all their resources, 2-3 devotees got together, put the resources, and they went through that challenge. Setting up a farm project is definitely not child's play. It is hard work, right? And they went through it, and now it's a glorious project. So many projects can start like that. If devotees have that intense desire and affiliation, they should get together and start. Even if it's a small way, small project, when Krishna sees the sincerity, it will expand more and more, but it's required. If we do not do this, well, let's put it this way. We haven't, over the last many years that Prabhupada gave that instruction, we have not followed that instruction, which means there will be some sort of reaction that we will have to go through for not doing that. And we should learn from that. And hopefully there are devotees that are inspired to set up a farm project to make it happen. That's one of my desires also, is to get a community, not just a temple, but a farm community, a community of devotees, where everything we require to live is there in a project. So I hope I shed some light on that question.
Thank you, Prabhu. And I also wanted to ask you a question, like if we have somehow forgotten or deviated a little bit from Prabhupada's mission and mood, how can we encourage ourselves and others to imbibe that mood and to get back into that missionary spirit?
Yes, again, by constantly remembering and hearing from the Prabhupada disciples, the devotees that share memories of Prabhupada. If we simply hear if you go to YouTube, there's so much nectar, and simply by hearing them, because Prabhupada's mood comes through very, very clearly when they share. Naturally, it's their perspective, but the mood comes through, and we begin to appreciate. Yes, this is Prabhupada. This is who's attracting us. So that's one way to remember and refresh our remembrance by hearing. The other is naturally through his books. By associating directly with Srila Prabhupada, he will inspire us with the right mood. And then by serving and associating with those that reflect that mood and amplify that mood. Okay? Because if you have good association, then you will also, that it'll rub off, that mood will rub off, because they'll be able to say, no, you're not supposed to do it like that. So for example, one of Prabhupada's instructions and even his mood was to always give prasad. Anyone that comes to the temple must get prasad and never leave without prasad. For example, one time Harisar Prabhu invited his family to come to the temple. And Prabhupada was still arriving. The Sunday program was finished. The feast was finished. and the family members came, but they didn't get prasad. So then when Prabhupada arrived, he introduced his family members. Prabhupada, this is my mother, father. And the first question Prabhupada asked, did they get prasad? And then he said, well, Prabhupada, the prasad was finished. Then Prabhupada said, then what's the use? Yeah. So Prabhupada was very particular about that. So that was Prabhupada's mood, right? Now, if we at the temple, and we understand, if anyone comes to the temple, then if we understand that, we will try to make sure somehow or other we need to provide prasad. Yeah. Let me share. Do you know what Prabhupada's standard of prasadam distribution was in the temple? Prabhupada said we should have, I think he said, for like a few, well, he didn't give the number of devotees, but he said we should have few devotees that needs to cook for 20 or 30 guests. Sabji, chapati, halwa. Every single day. Any guests come, they must get like that prasadam. Throughout the day, they must get the prasadam. And at the end, if there's anything left, devotees can have. Next day, you will repeat. And that was Prabhupada's standard of anyone visiting the temple. So we have a long way to go to come to that standard. But when you do that, you will see magic. You will see so many things unfold, right? And that's just one instruction of Srila Prabhupada. If we follow Prabhupada's instructions that he has given us, you will see there will be no lack in the society. How can there be? Because if there is, that means it's not from Krishna's side, it's not from Prabhupada's side, it's from our side.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was very, very nice answer. Some other comments. Wait. Okay. From Himanka Ghosh, just saying thank you for the session on Facebook. Then the founder Prabhupada, the messenger of the Lord by Satsvarup Dada Goswami is very nice. I've just started reading. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And then from Daniel Damoda Hayimana, sorry, I can't say the last name. Thank you, Prabhuji. What is the update in terms of establishing farm communities? This is from Facebook.
There is in ISKCON, there's a Varnashram community or committee, and they obviously manage the different projects inspiring devotees across the globe. So if one is interested, one can definitely connect. If you need, if anybody's interested, get in touch with me, and we can connect you in terms of the information. There is no lack of information in terms of, how to start farms, etc. What's required. Prabhupada's instructions, there's ample. It's just that we need devotees whose heart is sold out to simple living, high thinking. And if there are devotees who would love to get involved in that project, then yes, one can connect the leadership in ISKCON, or if you want to connect, via me, and we can try to engage the devotees accordingly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, these farm communities, hopefully there's something we can establish here in South Africa as well. It's something we definitely need.
Yeah, there's just one more. Yeah, there's obviously challenges in terms of dynamics and logistics just of South Africa itself, right? If you have a farm outside, at a obscure place, you can be attacked. So that logistic is there, right? So we also have to be realistic and see, how to start something that's that has the security at heart in terms of the devotees that are there. So it's easy to say we need farm projects, but there are a lot of things that need to be considered to actually get it off the ground. And for each place, it's unique. There are different variables, and we need to consider that in order to make sure that we sustain for the long term, and not just, we're just not coming and going because we just want something, right? Oh, I got a project, I got a farm project, but it doesn't survive, it doesn't sustain. So there are, many things that you need to understand and discuss before you can actually get into it.
Yes, that's, yeah, a lot of considerations, I guess. It's not so easy. So, oh, and okay, there's one more comment I see, also from Bafana Prabhu. He says, tell us a bit about what you know regarding changing of name from Swami to Prabhupada.
Okay, good. Yeah, so Mother Govinda Dasi shares this. In the early days, they would call Prabhupada Swami, right? And it was cool, Swami. It's short, especially for the hippies, right? Consider the type of people that are there. Prabhupada is teaching. These are youngsters, 17 to 20, no older. And they're rebellious. They basically free souls. And now Prabhupada had to give them Krishna consciousness. So Swami was ideal, short, to the T, cool. Hey, Swami's in town. Let's go. Swami is cool, right? So it is nice. Cool. So that's how they started, Swami. And they called it Swami, Swami. Then Govinda Dasi read that, the name Prabhupada, right, has more authority and it's more respectful. So when she asked Srila Prabhupada, she said, Prabhupada, Swamiji, this title, Prabhupada is, very wonderful. And Swamiji, Prabhupada said, is 5th class. So then she said, well, Prabhupada, if Swamiji is 5th class, in fact, it wasn't Swami, they're calling Prabhupada Swamiji. If Swamiji is 5th class, why are we calling you Swamiji? We should call you Prabhupada. Now it's interesting, it was Govinda Dasi who recommended to Srila Prabhupada that we call him Prabhupada. It wasn't Prabhupada saying, I'm the founder-acharya, I'm, the acharya, you need to call me Prabhupada. No. So in order to please his disciple, Prabhupada said, that's good. And from that day, everybody started calling Swamiji Prabhupada, which was appropriate. Right? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was also called Prabhupada. So that challenge was there, but Prabhupada he understood in terms of what's required for the mission. And in this way, slowly Prabhupada taught his disciples the ideal standard of respecting Acharya. Prabhupada had to teach them everything. They didn't know. I'll share one more pastime. Prabhupada was sitting with his disciple. So that Prabhupada had an apple. So Prabhupada cut the apple was cut, and Prabhupada bit into the apple, right? And he gave the apple to the disciple. So the disciple also bit into the apple and gave it back to Prabhupada. So this was the mentality, right? The disciples were very young. They didn't know, the etiquette, how to serve Prabhupada. It's amazing. But Prabhupada tolerated everything, knowing that they are young, they're immature, they're green, but they love me and they're sincere. And that is, that is basically the success. Because if they love me and they're sincere, Krishna will do everything. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That was really, really sweet. So just sincerity is the most important thing that we can get from today. And then Bafana Prabhu also wrote, the Swami is a small man, but he is delivering a great message. That is true. I am small, but the message, that is not small.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you, Bafana Prabhu.
Okay, perfect. So Prabhu, before we go, is there any closing words that you have for us?
So yes, in conclusion, firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance. And we should reflect on our good fortune that we are connected to not just a great person, not just a great pure devotee, but a very, very, very special personality. And to be connected to Srila Prabhupada is our greatest good fortune. We should stay at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And if we stay at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet together, as Prabhupada said, there will be another ISKCON in the spiritual world. We will be happy if we simply stay at Srila Prabhupada's feet, following his instructions, following his mission, and we will make others happy. If Prabhupada has touched any one of us in the slightest way, and I'm 100% convinced every single one of us have been touched by Srila Prabhupada, we should try our best to repay Srila Prabhupada, which he said is impossible to repay, but we can try to repay by simply in our own capacity, with our own skills, own abilities, own talents, no matter big or small, try to share Srila Prabhupada's instructions, wisdom, books, mission with others. And in this way, we will be pleasing Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tremendously. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Nrsimhananda Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Vanchakalpatarubhasha kripa sindhurvi eva chapatipanam
Danam
bhavana.
Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.